Hello there and welcome to Walker Analytics. My name is Wesley Walker and I'm the founder and director of Walker Analytics. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through a full overview of Google Data Studio. Now, Google Data Studio is a data visualization tool that is used primarily by digital analysts and data analysts. And you have a whole source of data connectors. There's a lot of cool visualization features in there. So by the end of this video, you should hopefully have a better understanding and overview of Google Data Studio. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure that you let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more future Google Data Studio videos. Drop a like down below and subscribe if you're new for more data analyst and digital analytics videos. So when you log into Google Data Studio with your Gmail address, this is the first screen that you'll see. And there are a couple of areas over here that I will take you through. So the first thing you see here is the report templates. So there's quite a few report templates that come as standard when you join Google Data Studio. So you have a tutorial report, a marketing report, Google Search Console, Google Ads, and this will actually use sample data, Google's own sample data within these templates. You can also click into the template gallery if you want to make your life a little bit easier. Actually, there's loads of templates in here for you to choose from that is based on current existing connectors within Google Data Studio. So you have quite a range of dashboards in here to use if you want to use these templates to save yourself the time. I personally like to build everything from scratch initially and then use my own template going forward for each individual brand. You also see below here is where you'll see your reports that you've created. So if any reports have been shared with you or reports that you've created yourself, they will appear within this area. Because this is a brand new account, we don't see any reports in here currently, but you can filter that by reports that have already been created by you or reports that have been shared with you, or every single report that you have access to essentially. The bin is for dashboards that you've deleted. We've gone through templates. At the top here you have data sources. So this is the data that you actually connect to in order to create your dashboards. And there are a lot of data source connectors which I'll show you now. So if you click create, you can either go straight into creating a report, or you can add your data source straight ahead, or you can do Explorer. And Explorer is a feature where you essentially explore data that you've imported into Google Data Studio. And it's a good way of getting a good understanding of what your data is, what kind of the fields that are in there before you use your reports. It's quite similar to the Power BI feature where you have the data section of Power BI where you can look into the columns and the rows and the data that you've imported into your report. So we'll click add a data source. But before you can do that, Google Data Studio asks for some basic information on your company, and you only get this when it's the first time you've created your account. So just to finalize it really. So just fill in the country, and I'm living in the UK. Call it Walker Analytics, and you just click agree and continue. And this part is just opting into CRM campaigns essentially. So if you know anything about new product announcements, market research, tips and recommendations, then you can just opt in. So I'm gonna opt out because I already get this. Cool. So now you can see the wide range of data that we have available to you in Google Data Studio. So Google's own connectors, you have Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Sheets, BigQuery, Cloud SQL, MySQL, Campaign Manager. You can do an actual file upload of a CSV file in here as well. Display, Google Ads Manager. As you can see, there's quite a lot of data in here. YouTube Analytics as well, Search Console. A lot of the key reports that you typically use and key data source that you use for digital marketing, you can visualize within this platform. And there are also partner connectors as well. So these are third-party connectors that other people who use Google Data Studio have developed and then enabled onto the platform. There are some connectors out there that you can pay for that give you access to lots of data that you don't get by default, such as Instagram and Facebook Insights. Supermetrics is a tool that does that quite well. So if you're really looking to scale up your Google Data Studio reporting, that's, in my opinion, that is a must-have tool. So we will connect to Google Analytics. Authorize. Right, so we'll just select Google Analytics for the course of this video. We have access to the demo account already, and we'll choose the Universal Analytics and the master view. Just click connect, and you should hopefully have the data source connected to Google Data Studio. Great. The data is now connected. So as soon as you connect your data to Google Data Studio, you'll be provided with all the data that is included in your connector. So you'll see columns of all the dimensions and metrics that are included in your integration, and also the type of data that it is. So whether it will be a text variable, a integer, it's all labeled in the type, and then whether the data is aggregated or not, you will see that in this area as well. You can also search for specific columns as well. So you want to search for sessions. Yeah, we can do that, and it's all highlighted there. And then we can see that the data type there is as well. You can also change the data type. So if you wanted new sessions to be a numeric number instead, you can do that, or change to a currency. You can also do that, which is quite handy for when you're creating custom measures, such as add to cart and other measures like that within Google Data Studio. So you have the data here, so we can't actually see the rows, we can't actually see what kind of fields come up when you use this data. And this is why we have the Explore tab. So when you click the Explore tab, this is what I mentioned previously in the video, where it will show you the actual values that are stored within the data set that you just connected to. So we can see a page title, we can see the number of users, which have been brought up by default. And in this view is actually quite similar to the report builder view, Google Data Studio. So it's a good way to warm up and get used to the interface. So let's say we wanted to look at channel, and we want to look at the channel by new users, let's say transactions. And conversion rate. And we can see that view there. So we already know, we know what channels are actually grouped in by default. So we have direct, paid search, display, affiliates, and the rest fall into other. And you can see the fields that fall into that and how that works. So it's a good way of getting used to your data and just better understand how it works. So beforehand we might have not known we had that limitation on the channel reporting until you made a report, but we know that now through the Explore field. So you can save this, but I never save my Explore areas, but you do have the option to save it if need be. But you can click back, so discard that. So now we have a decent understanding of Google Data Studio. We can go into creating a report. So create a blank report. And immediately given access to all the data connectors that Google Data Studio has, but you can also click into data sources that you've already used. So we have the master view, which we just connected to, and then there's also all this sample data that Google Data Studio lets you use for the purpose, I guess, of getting used to the tool. So we'll connect to master data, that's our data there, master view, click add. Yep. And you're given this warning that says that report editors can create charts using a new data source and can add dimensions and metrics currently not included in the report. So this essentially means that when you add this data to this report, if you give full access to anyone else to this dashboard, then they'll be able to edit the data as well using that data source. They may not be able to actually make changes to that data source depending on the level of restriction that you have on it, but they'll just be able to use it as a Google Data Studio, just letting you know that they'll be able to create visualizations based on that data. Let's click add to report. Cool, and Google Data Studio already begins to populate some of the data for us. So we have this raw sheet, which is very customizable. You can practically make things any shape and size that you want, as long as it's within the workspace for the dashboard. And when you go through files, so you can click, you can share. So if you want to share this dashboard, you can share it with anyone. And there's quite a lot of flexibility here. So if you add people, you add them by their Gmail address. So if they have a Gmail, that's their email, you put it in here and you add, and you can choose whether you want them to view the dashboard or be able to edit it. And then you can also manage access on a wider scale, so you can have link sharing enabled, for example. And if you've shared this dashboard with anyone else, you could promote them to make them the owner, or you can remove them within this area. So I mentioned link sharing, and these are the options that you have. So you can make this dashboard completely open to anyone who finds the link on the internet, and you can give them the options to view it or edit it. And you can do the same. Anyone with the link can view it, anyone with the link can edit it, and you can make it restricted access, so only people that you add onto the dashboard can actually view it. And then you can disable the downloading of the dashboard or preventing editors from changing access and be able to add new people. So anyone you add as editor, you can restrict their access as well. And there's also a shortcut to share in the dashboard, which is right here. It gives you the exact same view there. Within files, so you also have the report settings. So these are settings that you can make on the report wide. So for example, say if we only had one data source for this dashboard and we wanted it to be our GA source, then we can set that report wide, and that'll be the data set that's used for all of our visualizations. If you want any filters to be set report wide, you can also do that within these settings here as well. So if we only look at, for example, we only want to look at the channel being paid search, we could set that in here, and it would filter the entire report. So you see the version history, so you can see the version history of the report kind of speaks for itself, and many changes have been made. So you can click publishing settings, and essentially what this does is it enables you to be able to show your viewers changes that you make to your dashboard in real time, or you can restrict it so that you can make the changes and then publish it to all of your users who use your dashboards. You can make a new report from here, you can make a copy of the report, you can download the report in PDF, and then you can embed the report as well into a website or a web page, which can be quite useful. So editing the report, you have the standard features here, undo, be able to paste and select all the visualizations on your chart. You have view, so you can make the visualization of your charts snap to the grid. You can view the grid size, and just overall just view settings for the Data Studio workspace. And then you have the insert section, so this is where you can insert your specific visualizations, and there's a lot of really rich visualizations that you can use in Google Data Studio, and you have the entire variety of them here. So whether that be a scorecard, whether that be a Google Maps chart, whether that be a line graph, and there's lots of visualizations in here. You also have settings for the page. So Google Data Studio dashboards can have multiple pages. So at the moment we are on the first page for this dashboard, but we can also add a new page so that users can scroll through to different pages in the dashboard. And this can be quite useful if you're creating quite a lengthy dashboard and you need to split it up into different sections. So you can create new pages, or you can duplicate your current page, and even delete the page that you've just created essentially. You can have settings for the page specifically, and you can use it to navigate across the pages as well. Arrange settings, which is just for arranging specific visualizations. You can order it, align it, and all the views that you see here. You can also group specific visualizations, which works with the filters, and I'll show you guys how that works in a later video. And you have resources, so this is where you can manage your added data sources. So in this one we added master view, which is a sample Google Analytics data, but if we want to add more sources, we could manage all of that within here. You also have a view to manage blended data. So this is when you blend two data sources together. You can manage that within this resource view. Any segments that you import from GA, filters, you can manage that. Dimensionify your colors, report your parameters, and community visualizations as well. You can manage all of that from the resource. And then help is just lots of links to help you out with the dashboard. So we have the bit of data here that Google Data Studio has put in here by default for us. And as I kind of showed you earlier, it's very similar to Explore. So if we want to change this to be, let's say, browser, there's a lot of drag and drop functionality, so you can just drag and drop and replace it. You can also select the actual dimension itself and then type in whatever you want it within here to replace it. So the dimension, and one thing to keep in mind when you're doing visualization is that most visualization in Google Data Studio will start with the data source and then the dimension and then the metrics, and you have the rows view, the sorting, and then the date range and filters and Google Analytics segment if you're using a Google Analytics data source. That's typically how it tends to flow. And yeah, so you have your metric here. We can add a new one again. So if we want to look at transactions, we can select that and also pull it into the database. And we can make this longer if you want. You can make it pretty much as long as you want, as long as you're within the pixels on the workspace. And it's very customizable as well. So we've got the data in here. So the next tab we'll look into is the style tab. So this is where you can change the formatting of your actual workspace itself, your Data Studio dashboard. You can add conditional formatting. So if you wanted to add a color scale or single color, we can add in rules in here, and it will color the table accordingly. So if we want to do a color scale, which is quite normal, and let's say we click transactions, and let's say we set this, by default it's quite fine actually, so 0% transactions red, yellow and green. So if we click save, that will apply the conditional formatting. So we can see that this specific browser, Chrome, so the vast majority of the transactions are coming from. And if you want to make this a bit more useful, just so you understand the percentages, you can just add transactions in again. And change the metric so that it is a sum of the current row instead. So when you click on any metric in here, you have the option to change how it's calculated, similar to how you can in Excel. So when you click in here, you can change the name even. So you could change transactions to read orders instead. So we call it order share. Order share, and it's the number. You can change the type, and comparison calculation is what we're interested in. So we want this to be the percentage of the total relevant to the corresponding data, which will now give us the percentage. Yeah, so we see that 96% of all of our orders is coming from Chrome in this example. So quite a useful insight there already. So you have the conditional formatting. You also have the table header. So you can choose to show the header or not. In most cases, you're going to want that to be there. You can choose the font color and the size and the font. You can choose the colors within the actual headers themselves and different parts of the table. You can choose the text and the sizing for the table labels. You can choose to show or hide the row numbers and wrap in the text, which most cases you don't really have to want to borrow with this section. You can add a table footer, show the pagination, compact, color of the borders for the footer, the weight, type of style you want. You can choose what to do with missing data. You can show null, zero, blank, however you want it. You can do the left, center, or right aligning for dimensions and the metrics. And for each metrics column, you have some specific settings for them. So for column 1, we can show it as a number, or we can show it as a heat map, or we could show it as bars instead. So you have those options to play around with the data. You don't just have to show numbers. You can show it in different ways as on top of the conditional formatting, and you can change to be compact numbers rather than the whole numbers themselves. And depending on who your stakeholders are, it might be more useful for them to see compact numbers rather than the totals. And you can choose a decimal position as well. So if you want specific decimal points in that, you can choose that as well. And then you have the option for the other columns, of course. And then you can choose the background, the border styles, and that's pretty much it. And there you have it, a full overview of Google Data Studio. And I hope that this overview has been quite helpful for those of you who have watched it. And if you have any questions or want any more tutorials or advice on future Google Data Studio videos and content, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to provide that content. Until the next video.